Alright, so welcome back. So in the last video we talked about how the setup works, how the selection phase will actually work, because it's different depending on how many players you're playing as, 2, 3, 4, 5, and so on. So we talked about that. Now let's talk about the flow of the game. Now after everyone has chosen their character cards for the round. Now, if you're playing, like I said, 2 or 3 players, you're going to have 2 character cards. That means you get 2 turns for the round. If you're playing with more than that, then only 1 character card. That means only 1 turn that round. And it's quite possible, depending on what character you chose and what characters other players chose, you might not even get a turn that round if you're playing with more than, obviously, 3 players. So, the way it works is the assassin here goes first. So somebody will call out, okay, so assassin, reveal yourself. If nobody reveals themselves to be the assassin, then you just move on to the next one, which would be the thief. But most likely, someone will probably have some of these. So if somebody reveals themselves to have the assassin, they will do so. Okay? On the assassin's turn, they have 2 things basically that they can do. They're going to be able to take one of 2 actions, but they also can buy cards. They can also, should I say, build districts in their city if they have money on their turn, and they also can do their character's effect. So if a player has the assassin, okay, what you'll do is you'll call a character you wish to kill. The killed character skips his turn. Okay? You don't know what the other players chose. You might have some suspicions that a certain player decided to go for the king, maybe. So maybe, you know what, we'll assassinate the king. So you say, okay, I'm the assassin, so I'm going to assassinate the king. When that king's turn happens, then the king is skipped. So if you were the king, and that means you were assassinated, you don't get to take that turn that round. So that's ouch. So maybe the assassin is what you want to go for, so you can basically keep a player from getting a turn that round, or at least one of their turns if you're playing 2 or 3 players. But yes, that's what you're going to do if you're the assassin. Then you can either buy cards as an action. You can basically not buy cards, but you can draw 2 of these cards from this deck here of cards here. You can look at 2 of them and then decide which one you want to keep and which one you want to discard and add to your hand. That's one of the actions you can take. You can also obtain 2 gold from the bank. So that's another action you'll most likely be doing, because you do have districts you start with, so you might already have some ideas of which districts you want to build first. And remember, 7 districts, the player who builds them 7 districts first wins the game. So that's basically what that means. Pretty cool. So yeah, that's what you're going to do on your turn. And then if you can and want to, then you can spend money to build a card into your district, into your city, I should say, one of your district cards into your city. But basically that's what you'll do on your turn, and that's how the assassin will work. And then after that's done, then your turn is over, and we'll move on to the thief. We'll call out who is the thief. If somebody is the thief, then they will reveal themselves to be the thief, and then they will take their turn, and they will also get to do what the thief does, which is call a character you wish to rob. When the robbed character is revealed, you take all his gold. So if a character wasn't in the game, then obviously you might know, you also might know some of the characters might be in the game, but there's at least one you probably don't know for sure is in the game. So you could be stealing from a character who actually isn't in this round. That is possible. If that happens, then you steal from nobody because they weren't around to steal. Also, if the king was assassinated and you decided to steal from the king who was already assassinated, well, you're not stealing from the king now because the king's dead. So basically that's what's going to happen, and you get to take all of his gold. So if you get to steal from a player, you take all of the gold they have. If they have 2 gold, that's what you're going to get. If they have 4 or 5, that's what you're stealing. So you don't want to hoard gold because then the thief will take advantage of how much gold you have and steal it all. So you do not want to hoard gold. You want to build buildings as soon as you possibly can, just so you can avoid the thief, okay? So that's how the thief will work. Obviously, the thief will take their turn, and then we will call out the magician. And if somebody happens to be the magician, then this is what you get to do as the magician. You can either exchange hands of cards with another player or discard any number of cards to gain an equal number of cards. So maybe you think, player 3 over there has some cards. Maybe he has some cards you might like and you don't know for sure, but you can switch hands with him, which may not make him very happy, but that's something you can do. So that's pretty cool. You're not necessarily trading hands with a particular character, you're trading hands with another player. But that's how that's going to work. You'll also take your turn like normal, whether you choose to get cards, get gold from the bank, etc., build, obviously. But that's how that's going to work. Then, after that, after you call out the magician, and the magician has taken their turn, then you'll call out the king. But the king was assassinated, right? So then the king won't get to take his turn. You just skip the king and move on to the bishop. But let's just say that the king was not assassinated. The player who had the king would reveal that they have the king. And then they will get to take the crown. And so since they have the crown, they will get to basically go first during the selection phase of choosing characters in the next round. And you'll also gain 1 gold for each of your noble districts. So if you have a noble district in your city that you build or have built, you'll get some gold as well if you happen to be the king. That's, of course, only if you have those districts already. But if you were to build one on your turn, you'd get 1 gold as well, so that's nice. And then after the king takes their turn, you would call out the bishop. And if somebody had the bishop, then they would get this effect, which is the rank 8 character cannot use its ability on your districts. And then if you have any religious districts, then you gain 1 gold for each of the religious districts in your city. So that's what you get to do if you're the bishop. You're not affected by the warlord. And so we're getting to the warlord. Okay. Then you will call out the next character. And if someone happens to be the merchant, then they will reveal themselves as the merchant, take their turn, and get to do the merchant effect, which is gain 1 extra gold. So if you're the merchant, you get a free gold. And then you also gain 1 gold for each of your trade districts. So if you have some trade districts already, or you're going to build one on your turn, you're going to get an extra gold for that. So that's good, right? Then you'll call it number 7. 7 is the architect. So the architect is gain 2 extra cards. Okay, well, gain 2 extra cards, so that's good. So that's a nice way of getting cards if you still want to get money from the bank. If you have the architect, you basically get 2 extra cards anyways, so that's nice. And then you can build up to 3 districts. Normally on your turn, you can only build 1 district per turn. Okay, so if you had the money to build 2, normally you wouldn't be able to do that because you're only allowed to build 1 per turn. But if you're the architect, you can build up to 3 districts on your turn. That's powerful. So maybe the architect might be a character you wish to choose. And then after that, you'll call out who's number 8, who is the warlord. Okay, so the warlord. What does he do? Obviously, if somebody was the warlord, they would reveal themselves to have the warlord. Well, the warlord allows you to destroy 1 district by paying 1 fewer gold than its cost. The reason why this makes sense is because since the bishop is actually protected by the warlord, you wouldn't be able to use the warlord on the player who had the bishop. But if they had a district, if another player had a district in their city, you could pay 1 fewer gold cost of the cards that they have in their city, the district, and they lose their district. So the warlord's a good way of keeping your players from obviously ending and winning the game, or should I say ending the game, because then they'll lose districts and they'll have to build more, which means you might be able to get ahead. So getting the warlord, that could be advantageous as well. So it's not just the assassin and the thief and possibly the magician that has to take that element, the warlord has probably one of the worst out there next to the assassin. The assassin's still the worst, but the warlord comes pretty close. After the warlord takes his normal turn, getting gold or drawing cards, etc., building something in their district, or city, I should say, then you will call out number 9, the tax collector. If you're playing a 3-player game, you will be playing with the tax collector, which is this card here. So as the tax collector, if the tax collector is in the game, regardless of whether he was assassinated, regardless of whether he was one of the characters discarded, if tax collector is in the game, at the end of each player's turn, or should I say after each player builds. So if they build a card, build a district in their city on their turn, if the tax collector is in the game, you're going to have to place one of your gold onto this token here, the tax collector's token. Regardless of who you know, you don't know who the tax collector is, but if you are the tax collector, then you won't have to do it. Okay? But you're not, no one is going to know that you have the tax collector because you're last. If you have the tax collector, you're last. So no one's going to probably know it unless, obviously there's not much left. They might know so-and-so has the tax collector by, obviously, the warlord's turn. But chances are no one's going to know you have the tax collector until the end of the round, basically. And then, so if you have the tax collector, you don't have to worry about putting any gold coins on this token. Now, if the tax collector was assassinated, or it was one of the cards discarded, everyone's still going to have to put a gold coin here on the token when they build a card in their city. They still have to do that. But then, when someone finally does get to be tax collector, and it's finally their turn to be the tax collector, then they're going to get to take all gold from your character token. So they'll get to take all the gold that's sitting on here, even if there's a lot of extra gold on here thanks to the last round of the game when the tax collector was assassinated or discarded. Still, that's powerful. But like I said, that might make you, if there's a lot of gold there on the tax collector, it might make the assassin be like, I guess I know who I'm assassinating. I'm going to assassinate the tax collector because I don't want that player to get all that gold. So obviously there is definitely some strategy in this game too, because you don't want certain characters to play their turns. You might not want someone to take, if you have the crown right now, you might not want someone to take it from you. So if you have the assassin, you might want to kill the king. Or you also might want to kill the warlord because you don't want him to destroy a district in your city, possibly, because you might have a lot of districts. Or if the tax collector's in the game, you might want to get rid of the tax collector so you don't have to worry about the player getting a ton of gold from the tax collector token. Or maybe you have the assassin, but you don't have the thief, but you have a lot of gold sitting in your inventory, basically. You don't want the thief to steal from you, so you might choose to assassinate the thief. So there's a lot of strategy here, for sure, of which characters to play as, which characters to choose, and it will be different each round. Maybe it's fortunate you want to go for the assassin in the first round, but maybe later you might want to be someone else. Maybe you'll want to get the crown back and be king, or, maybe there's a lot of gold sitting here, so you might want to go for the tax collector, and so on. So, anyways, that's basically how you play the game. Now, obviously, this is a game where you're going to try to score points, and so at the end of the game, you will be trying to, obviously, score points equal to the building cost of each of your districts. So, if, for instance, you have the tavern, this is worth a point at the end of the game, okay? If you have the docks, this is worth 3 points at the end of the game. So whoever has the most points will win. Sure, you can build a lot of these cheaper, but you're not going to get as many victory points for something that costs more. But yeah, that's one of the ways you'll score points in this game. There are also special unique cards in here that you might have that might allow you to score extra points in the game. You also might get points based on if you have a lot of religious districts or a lot of military districts, etc., you might get points based on that as well, depending on what cards you have in your city. you'll score any extra points. So basically, you'll score any extra points that you might obtain from these purple unique cards is what I'm talking about. Also the player who completed his city first, so whoever got 7 districts in their city first, they will score 4 points, and then any other player who completed his city will score 2 points. So maybe player 1, obviously, maybe they built their 7th district in their city, so they're going to score 4 points at the end of the game, but there's still that round to finish. So maybe another player will be able to complete their city and have 7 cards in their district. If they do, they'll get 2 points as well. So and that could happen with player 3 as well, who knows. So that's basically how you're going to obviously try to win the game, is obviously building these districts here, and there are so many districts, so as you can see, and some of them cost a lot. So but basically, that's how you play Citadels. So thank you guys for watching this video. Don't forget to leave a like if you guys liked my explanation of how to play this game. And I'll see you guys again next time. Don't forget to leave a like. Bye.